They told her to leave. Just like that. No kindness. No second glance. She was old, slow, in the way. The bank staff laughed behind tight smiles, while Mildred, 82 years old and shaking, fumbled for her checkbook and then for her dignity. The door shut behind her like a verdict, but they didn't know who was walking in next. Jason Statham doesn't believe in looking the other way. When he sees injustice, he doesn't raise his voice. He becomes a storm. You made a mistake. Now you're going to fix it. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. It started on a Thursday. Cold air swept across the sidewalks, stiff and uninviting. The kind of morning that wraps around your bones, whispering you don't belong outside. But Mildred had no choice. She was dressed in her Sunday coat, faded navy blue, and a knit scarf someone's daughter had once made for her. Her walker squeaked with every step as she made her way toward the bank. Oak Ridge Savings and Loan, a place she had trusted since 1968. A place that had once handed her a free toaster just for opening an account. Now, they barely handed her a receipt. Inside, the hum of computers and artificial smiles greeted her. The staff behind the glass wore crisp collars and empty eyes. A young man behind the counter scrolled on his phone, while a teller chewed gum like she was timing the rhythm to stay bored. Mildred waited patiently at the back of the short line. Clutched in her hand was a small envelope with her monthly pension check. What she relied on to keep the lights on, the fridge running, the memories warm. When her turn came, she smiled. "Good morning, sweetheart." The teller didn't look up. Mildred extended the check. "I just need help depositing this. I think I marked the wrong spot last time. My eyes aren't what they used to be." The teller sighed, then called for the manager. The manager, a tall man with narrow tie and narrower patience, stepped forward. His tone was sterile. "Ma'am, you'll need a caretaker or authorized signer present. We can't process this without proper oversight." Mildred tried to explain she'd done this herself for years. She even had her ID, her passbook, but none of it mattered. The man was already looking past her, to the next customer, to the next distraction. He gestured toward the exit, and that's when it happened. As she turned to leave, her walker caught on the mat near the door. She stumbled, not hard, but just enough for her scarf to slip and her check to flutter to the floor. No one moved to help. The silence was worse than a shout. Tears welled up, not just from the fall, from the memory of who she used to be. And that's when Jason Statham walked in. He had a plain manila envelope in one hand, the other tucked in the pocket of a worn coat. He wasn't there to make a scene, just to do a favor. He was helping a neighbor file some estate documents. That's all. Nothing heroic. Until he saw her. Until he saw them. Jason didn't rush over. He didn't speak yet. He just watched. His eyes took in every detail. The tight-lipped smirks, the crossed arms, the guard pretending to be polite while nudging Mildred toward the door. That's the thing about Jason. He doesn't act until he knows. But once he knows, it's already too late for the ones who forgot how to be human. He stepped forward. Quietly, deliberately. Mildred looked up, surprised, wiping her cheek. Jason knelt beside her, picked up the envelope, handed her scarf back, and said gently, "Let's sit you down." He helped her to a nearby bench outside the bank's glass wall. She kept apologizing for being a bother, for making a fuss. But Jason just sat beside her, said nothing, let the silence do the work. After a moment, he asked, "Do you want to go back in and finish what you came here to do?" Mildred looked down. Her hands trembled. "They won't listen to me." Jason stood, calm, still holding the manila envelope. And in that moment, he turned his back to her and walked toward the door, not with rage, not with fire, but with purpose so heavy it cracked the atmosphere. Because this wasn't just about a check. It was about dignity. And Jason Statham? He collects moments like these, not to punish, but to restore balance. Jason stood at the threshold of the bank, like a man stepping into a courtroom. Same walls, same silence, same expectation of justice. Only now it was personal. He didn't make a scene, didn't raise his voice. He just walked to the front of the line. The same teller who dismissed Mildred looked up, blinking fast, unsure what to say. Jason placed his envelope gently on the counter. His tone was even. "Call your manager." The teller hesitated, then obeyed. The branch manager arrived, buttoning his suit as if it would make him more important. "Sir, you'll need to wait your turn." Jason didn't move. "I saw what you did to that woman." The manager let out a quiet, exasperated sigh. "Sir, we follow federal banking protocols. If she couldn't provide appropriate documentation..." Jason's voice dropped just enough to steal the air. "She's been coming here longer than you've been alive." Behind him, the line stopped pretending not to listen. Jason leaned in slightly, not threatening, but close enough to be real. "She didn't forget her ID. She didn't forget her check. You forgot your humanity." The manager straightened his tie. "Are you threatening me?" Jason shook his head once. Slowly. "No, I'm warning you." A beat passed. Then another. The manager scoffed and waved him off like a fly. "Sir, if you don't have business here, I'll have to ask you to leave." Jason nodded once, calmly picked up his envelope, and turned around, but not toward the exit. He faced the people in line. Some looked down, some looked away. But a few, just a few, met his gaze and saw it. That fire without flames, that pressure without volume, that promise. Outside, Jason sat beside Mildred again. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "I'm sorry I wasted your time." Jason turned toward her, leaned his elbows on his knees, and said quietly, "You didn't waste anything." He asked if she had anyone, kids, cousins, anyone to help with errands like this. Mildred shook her head. "I used to, but people get busy." She wasn't complaining, just stating facts like weather. "It's cold today and I'm alone." That's when something inside Jason locked into place. He helped her to her feet, walked her home, and made sure she got inside safe. She offered him a cookie. He took one, sat on her couch for a while, and listened to stories about her late husband, her garden, her old job at the post office. When he finally stood to leave, he asked for a piece of paper. On it, he wrote his number and said, "You ever need anything, you call me. Doesn't matter what it is." Mildred folded the paper like it was currency, like it had weight. That night, Jason stood in his kitchen, staring out the window at nothing. The manila envelope still sat on the counter, unopened. His phone buzzed. A message from a friend in local government. Then another from someone who worked in compliance at a different bank. Jason didn't call the police. He called people who moved the gears, because he knew this wasn't just about Mildred. It was about all the people who get ignored until someone decides not to ignore them anymore. By morning, the video had already started to circulate. Someone in the line had filmed it. Jason's words, the silence that followed, the way the manager had smirked. The caption read, "This man didn't yell, he didn't threaten, but he changed the temperature of the room." That day, Jason made more calls. One to an old contact at a local paper, another to a nonprofit that protects senior rights. And then, with nothing but quiet resolve, he pulled his coat back on. He wasn't done with Oak Ridge Savings and Loan. The next morning, the air inside Oak Ridge Savings and Loan felt off. Same fluorescent lights, same lukewarm coffee. But the staff were checking the windows more often. Whispers floated between desks like static. Someone had seen it, then shared it. Then millions watched. The video of Jason Statham standing at the teller's counter, calm, grounded, and impossible to ignore, was now everywhere. There were no explosions, no raised fists, just a man drawing a line with nothing but words. And silence. Jason didn't post it. He didn't even know who did. But the world knew his face now. Inside the bank, the manager held a tense meeting behind a locked door. They used words like optics and damage control. No one said apology. Meanwhile, Jason was moving with quiet precision. He returned to Mildred's home that morning, not for drama, for coffee. She'd made it just the way he liked, black, no sugar. Her hand still trembled when she poured it, but less than the day before. They sat in silence for a while. Then she showed him something, an old checkbook, filled with decades of careful, handwritten notes. Jason flipped through it slowly. Every page was proof that she'd been responsible, consistent, and worthy of respect. "This isn't a checkbook," he said softly. "It's a record of who you are." She smiled, touched her scarf, and whispered, "You make me feel like I matter." Jason didn't reply. He didn't have to. By noon, things had shifted. A reporter called asking for a statement. Then a local radio host requested an interview with the man in the black coat. Jason declined both. This wasn't about him. But word kept spreading. Stories poured in. Messages from other seniors, war veterans, disabled folks, all describing how they'd been pushed aside by banks, grocery stores, even doctors' offices. Not loud mistreatment, just that slow drip of being forgotten. Jason started collecting those stories. He typed them up, neatly, fact-checked everyone, then emailed them to corporate headquarters. Subject line: "You might want to know who you work with." Inside the bank, panic was growing. The manager tried to frame the incident as a miscommunication, but the higher-ups weren't buying it. Regional leadership scheduled an unannounced visit. Legal sent over guidelines on ADA compliance and elder respect policies, things they hadn't looked at in years. But the biggest shift came at 3:42 p.m. Jason walked back into the bank. This time, Mildred was beside him. She wasn't hunched today. She stood straighter, her scarf pinned neatly in place, her checkbook tucked on her arm like a badge. The room went silent. Again, customers stepped aside. No one told Jason to wait in line. He and Mildred walked to the same counter where it all began. The same teller looked up, eyes wide, heart probably pounding. Jason gave her one slow nod, then looked to the manager's office. The door opened before he had a knock. The manager stepped out, sweating under the collar. "Mr. Statham, I understand you returned with some concerns." Jason cut him off. Quietly, "I didn't come to complain. I came to witness." The manager blinked. "Excuse me?" Jason pointed to Mildred. "She's going to finish what she came here to do. You're going to make sure it happens right." The manager fumbled for words. "We'd be happy to assist." "No," Jason said. "You're going to apologize first." The room held its breath. The manager looked to the crowd gathering at the windows, then to the teller, then back at Jason. And for the first time, his voice cracked. "Mrs. Evans, I'm sorry for how you were treated. It was wrong. I was wrong." Mildred nodded, eyes misting over. Jason didn't smile. He just placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Now, let her deposit her check." The teller moved with the care of someone handling something sacred. Every form was explained, every step offered kindly. And when it was done, Mildred looked up at Jason with something deeper than gratitude. Respect. She'd been seen. She'd been heard. And Jason? He was just getting started. The next day, the doors of Oak Ridge Savings and Loan didn't just open. They held their breath. For the first time in years, customers weren't walking in to make deposits. They were walking in to watch. Word had spread, not just about Mildred, not just about Jason Statham, but about what the bank hadn't done until they were made to. And now, Jason was back again. He walked through those glass doors with a pace that never rushed and never slowed. In his hand was a folder. Inside it, the names of 37 people, elderly, disabled, or ignored, who'd come forward in just 48 hours. He approached the counter. The staff didn't ask questions this time. The manager appeared almost instantly. His tie was looser now, his tone more measured. "Mr. Statham, I wasn't expecting." "You weren't supposed to," Jason said. He opened the folder and laid it down. The manager glanced at it, then looked away. These are allegations. Some of them go back years." Jason nodded. "Exactly." The manager took a slow breath. "We're already reviewing internal procedures." Jason leaned in just slightly. "No, you're reacting. There's a difference." The doors opened again. In walked someone no one expected. The regional director, a sharp-suited woman in her 50s with a presence that silenced the room. She walked directly to Jason. "Mr. Statham," she said, extending a hand. "I've read everything. I'm here to listen." The manager tried to interrupt. "We got the situation under control." She cut him off with a look, then turned back to Jason. "Would you be willing to walk me through the details?" Jason didn't flinch. "I will, but Mildred speaks first." From the corner, Mildred stood. No walker this time. Just her, leaning gently on the arm of a woman who worked at the local senior center. Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. "I was told I wasn't capable of using my own money," she said. "But I remember a time when this place had tellers who called me by name, who asked about my husband, who made me feel like I mattered." A hush fell over the lobby. "I don't want compensation," Mildred said. "I want the next woman who walks in looking like me be treated like she belongs here." The regional director looked at Jason. "Is that what you want too?" Jason didn't blink. It's what should have happened the first time. And that's when the shift became permanent. The regional director announced a full internal audit of the branch. The manager was placed on immediate leave, not because Jason demanded it, but because the truth had weight now. It couldn't be ignored. She turned to the staff. "Every one of you will receive updated training. Every branch in this district will, starting today." One of the younger tellers, clearly shaken, stepped forward. I didn't know how bad it looked until I saw the video. Jason looked at him, then do better. Every day, when no one's filming, outside, local news vans had started arriving, but Jason didn't stop to speak. He walked with Mildred down the sidewalk, past the cameras, past the headlines, past the noise. She looked up at him, voice soft. "You could have let it go." Jason nodded. "A lot of people could have. That's the problem." She slipped her hand into his elbow. They didn't say anything after that, because the words had already done their job. Because sometimes the most powerful moment isn't when you fight back. It's when you stand up. Has anyone ever stood up for you when no one else would? Or maybe you were the one who spoke out. Share your moment below. Let's remind each other what real courage looks like. The story wasn't supposed to go national, but it did. A grainy phone video, a single quote, "You forgot your humanity," had lit a spark that leapt from screen to screen, across neighborhoods, across state lines. Not because Jason Statham went viral, but because Mildred did. The world didn't see her as just an old woman anymore. They saw their mother, their grandmother, their future. News outlets ran with headlines like, "One man stands still, and the world takes notice," and the bank, the widow, and the voice that wouldn't yell. Talk shows invited Jason to speak. He declined everyone. His message was simple. "This isn't about me. It's about everyone you stop seeing." But that didn't stop the momentum. Community groups began organizing around fair treatment for seniors in public spaces, banks, hospitals, government offices. Signs were posted in businesses. "We see you. We serve you." One town hall in Oak Ridge set up an open mic for local elders to share stories. The room overflowed. They spoke of forgotten appointments, ignored requests, the soft erosion of respect. Jason sat in the back, silent, notebook in hand. When it was his turn, he stepped to the mic, voice even, slow. Dignity isn't a luxury. It's not a prize you earn for being quiet or polite. It's your birthright, and it should echo in every hallway, behind every counter, on every name tag. People didn't clap. They stood. Back at the bank, the branch was being reshaped, this time not with marble floors or fancier pens, but with purpose. Customer service hours were extended. Chairs were placed in every line queue. Private booths were added for those needing help without judgment. And a new staff position was created, Senior Support Liaison. Guess who they asked to help train her? Mildred. She laughed at first, thought it was a joke. But Jason looked her in the eye and said, "You're the most qualified person in the building." The first day she stepped into that role, she wore a silver pin her husband gave her in 1973, a quiet reminder of strength that never left. And Jason, he kept going. He started attending city council meetings, not with speeches, but with stories. He read letters sent in from people across the country who'd been overlooked. He brought them into the room like witnesses. His presence changed the tone every time. One of the tellers from the bank, a young woman named Kayla, approached Jason weeks later outside the post office. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. He nodded. "For what?" "For not yelling. For showing us what we couldn't see." Jason looked her in the eyes. "Now it's your turn to show someone else." And she did. She helped form a peer training group across the bank's network to discuss unconscious bias. No corporate push, just a decision to do better. And it all began with a woman and her walker, and the man who wouldn't look away. Mildred became more than a client. She became a symbol, but she never changed. She still clipped coupons, still fed the stray cat that visited her porch, still made coffee the same way. Except now, she walked into that bank not as a burden, but as a force. Jason drove her there one last time, months after that first visit. No media, no watchers, just two friends and a check. "I still get nervous," she admitted. Jason smiled. "That means you still care." She nodded, then grinned. "You ever think about working in a bank?" He raised an eyebrow. "Only if they let me bring my own chair." They both laughed, and as she stepped through the glass doors, Jason stayed behind, watching, not because she needed him to, but because he always finishes what he starts. The signs on the front doors of Oak Ridge Savings and Loan were different now. Not flashy, not corporate, just simple white letters on clean glass. All are welcome. No one waits alone. It didn't come with a ribbon cutting or a press conference. The changes arrived quietly, one chair at a time, one extra minute of patience, one shift in tone. And it was enough. Mildred came in that morning without a walker, just her sturdy shoes, her purse, and her checkbook. Her name was already on the screen when she arrived. The greeter smiled, asked how her roses were doing. Someone offered her tea, not out of pity, out of habit, because something had changed. Mildred had become a fixture, not the kind you ignore, but the kind you learn from. She'd helped train the new staff member, who now greeted every senior client. She'd written her story for the local newsletter. She even gave a speech once, though she kept it short. "It's not about demanding to be seen," she'd said. "It's about helping people remember they use a look." Jason didn't come with her that day. He didn't need to. He stood across the street for a few minutes, watching the doors open and close, watching people walk in with dignity, walk out with something more than receipts. And then he turned and walked home, back in his modest kitchen. He opened a drawer filled with manila envelopes, each labeled, each one a story, a moment, a life he'd stepped into just long enough to straighten the edges. He placed Mildred's envelope inside and shut the drawer slowly. No fanfare, no medals, just that quiet click of something finished. Later that week, he visited the community center, where a group of high school students were holding a project meeting on elder care. He didn't speak long. Jason never does, but he said enough. "Respect doesn't start with policy," he told them. "It starts with presence, with not looking past someone just because you're in a hurry." They wrote that down, word for word. At the grocery store, a woman stopped him. "My mother was treated better last week at the DMV," she said. They had a whole separate line now. No more long waits. Jason just nodded. "Good. Did you do that?" "No," he said. "Someone decided to care." That was always the point. He didn't want attention. He wanted momentum. He passed by the bank again later that week. The young teller, Kayla, was at the counter, smiling at an older man who looked confused about the machine. She didn't rush. She explained it twice, then walked around to help him herself. Jason caught her eye through the window. She saw him, nodded once. So he nodded back and kept walking. Most people think justice is loud. They think it roars in courtrooms, marches through the streets, screams from podiums. But sometimes justice whispers. Sometimes it wears old shoes, walks with a limp, and carries a checkbook no one wants to look at. And sometimes it walks in behind her, wearing a worn coat, saying nothing until silence becomes the loudest voice in the room. Jason Statham never asked to be noticed. He doesn't hand out lectures. He doesn't make demands. He just shows up, and that changes everything. He showed up for a woman the world was ignoring, not because he had to, because it was right. And when he did, it reminded everyone watching that decency isn't complicated. It's not a performance. It's a choice. Every day, someone like Mildred walks into a place hoping they'll be seen. Most of them walk out disappointed. But not this time, because one man noticed. And once he did, the excuses weren't enough. The policies weren't enough. The apologies weren't enough. Only change was. This story isn't about a bank. It's not about paperwork or policies or branches. It's about one woman who still believed in kindness, and one man who refused to let the world forget how to give it. So the next time you see someone being pushed aside, stand, speak, stay. You don't have to raise your voice. You just have to not look away. Because real strength doesn't always come from what you say. Sometimes it comes from what you won't let slide.